because we're all here to listen and work with them, right? So I'm going to turn it over to Matt to close it up.
Are we live? There we go. What a fantastic discussion today, you guys. You should feel really good about the trajectory that you're on. So I'm going to do like a lightning round recap of some things that I thought were fascinating that I'm going to take home with me. Returning, we're right. Regardless of how the data shakes out, we're right. This community is right for a sizable event, so there's work to do. Range of might. We can't do it on our own. Your federal partners are looking for leadership. You can provide remarkable support. If you want to make NEPA go fast, if you want to incentivize your federal partners to exercise every tool they have in the tool belt, even the ones that are tough and come with some risk, provide that support, that community support. It's going to drive action with your federal land management partners. You know, in the Gunnison District, we were able to analyze 240,000 acres and generate 25,000 acres of treatment covered in less than 18 months. And that was 100% because the county, the environmental community, the ranching community, the recreation community, all of those communities were at the table and driving towards a singular outcome. That's what Mike needs. He needs your support, and he also needs to know what you want. We'll talk about that in a minute. Shared priority setting, this idea that everyone has to be at the table. This came out of our friend from the BLM. I apologize, I forgot her name. Tony, thank you. This idea that we have to come together to figure out what the future looks like in order to be able to create that future together. NEPA is not a bad word. It's an extremely valuable tool. It should be a proud part of our national environmental legacy. But how you use it, again, is defined by how you engage with it. You can't see it as just a process that you have to go through to do something that you want to do. You have to see it as an opportunity to clarify what's the challenge in front of you, how you're going to go about solving it together. This piece around the sort of, I call it the scenery security trade-off. That's when we're talking about power lines and cutting trees. We've got to desensitize the people of Colorado from this idea that an unbroken single-age span of ponderosa and/or lodgepole is a healthy forest. Because what it really is a ginormous fuel hazard designed to go off like a firecracker under the right conditions and have devastating impacts. So there's some work to do on that scenery security trade-off. And the planning discussion, in Colorado, it's locally controlled. It's going to be locally driven. And I love the community acceptability scale. And where you move on that scale is defined on the type of engagement, the type of values that come out of the conversations you have together. And that's a major trade-off scale. There's some really important work ongoing around WE fire codes in the legislature. The Fire Commission that was chaired in 2020. Its second recommendation of this year's session, it's a group that I participated in, advanced their second recommendation, and that is to adopt a statewide WE code. And that recommendation was submitted to the legislature and is under active consideration. It would essentially set through a rulemaking process, essentially set a floor. Now, communities could certainly regulate more intensively, but there would be a floor in Colorado for building standards. And then Todd's view of the world in building codes. I think that's a fascinating way to go through the planet, is to see everything in building codes. But there's a big amount of work to do there. And it's an extremely valuable tool. And again, creating security for your communities and giving firefighters, giving your residents, but also firefighters and first responders their best opportunity to manage fire effectively in the wildland urban interface. The Greg Phelps show, man, I've heard that presentation multiple times, and every single time I'm amazed about as it relates to the working model that J.P. County's created. I was on the other side of the Continental Divide. We used to have what I call envision, and it's just to see a community come together and activate a working model that continues to decide success begets success, which is a core value of mine. It's fantastic. And it used to be like, well, it's not going to work over here. That works for them, but it won't work here. I'm here to tell you that that's one of the most successful working models, not just in Colorado, but in the country, by far in the Intermountain West, if not the country. And that's why he's presenting in NACO and other intergovernmental organizations that have large reach. The things that comes out every time, that fluency. Greg has fluency with this issue. Leaders need to have fluency with these issues if they're going to champion them. And the way that things get done in democratic governance is typically through champions stepping in and leading in the face of adversity. And that's the second piece that he demonstrates is leadership, commitment at the elected scale, governance scale is extremely valuable because they're the ones that can take on the political risk of advancing things that are tough, especially around change in communities. So I encourage elected leaders here and community leaders in this basin to be very focused on what type of leadership am I advancing in support of this issue, and what type of fluency do I have around the issue itself, so that I can demonstrate through my fluency around this issue the critical importance of this issue as a local political leader, and then know that all of your partners and all of your friends are going to be there to support you as you manage the political risk of taking on potential tax increases, taking on potential building codes that have huge impacts on the cost of building and have issues and nexuses with affordability and attainability. These are real challenges that are being faced all across mountain communities in the state. And you have friends and partners through the intergovernmental organizations to lean on. You know, as Lake County engages with Chaffey County, it's a great place to show how that spillover effect. I'm hoping that spillover effect isn't bound by just edge matching, but it is opened up to everyone being open to the working models that are being practiced in Colorado. That's too much. All right. You don't want to leverage your core capital asset to cover your operating expenses. What defines your quality of life in the mountains of Colorado is the mountains of Colorado and the natural resources that are abundant within them. And so you don't want to leverage that by not taking bold action and lose what makes essentially defines who you are. Bang for the buck amount. That's still my favorite takeaway of this presentation. This idea that you prioritize in a way that's going to ensure commitment to the outcomes that you are coming to together, and that you're not going to deviate. Even when opportunity strikes, they were ready over here. We're not going to deviate. We're going to continue to do the due diligence, the hard work of getting ready to take action in the places that we said are the highest importance. That return on investment is significant in the long run. We have great examples in Colorado of where that work has been done and has substantially reduced impacts in the midst of a wildfire, as well as substantially reduced risk to wildfire managers as they engage. Yeah, that speaks to that tension of being opportunistic versus strategic. And then the community stakeholder process is what drives good governance. It's not acceptable to us. That I love. As a former district ranger and now a state leader, I love the idea of hearing communities tell their federal partners and us, the State Forest Service, and others that are involved in this work that where you're at right now is not acceptable. We want you over here doing this. That could be spatial, but that can also just be organizationally. Driving good governance requires local leaders and local communities to interface in a way that creates a higher level of accountability in the people that are responsible for stewarding resources on your behalf. And what's remarkable is that that level of accountability that they create in the upper and middle Arc Valley has generated what you heard a tsunami of success and funding. As far as Pam's presentation on COCO, I love this. I kind of synopsize the driving themes of your work around CWDs: actionable, inclusive, ground truth, prioritized, strategic, and public focused. You're absolutely on the right track. Those are the right themes to have in your mind as you think about what should be in your CWD. I think it's a perfect framework for you to advance your work, and I'm excited for you to follow and participate as I can. We're talking about the values of risk. This is the question of Tony. That they're at the land fire, the big national databases that sort of drive or the initial inputs to modeling that will help you prioritize where you want to start is not enough. You've got to focus on those things that are foundational and define the quality of life, and ensure that those inputs are included in the modeling that you do, so that when you develop your own bank of buck map here in Routt County, that you have the entirety of the values of risk incorporated, and that will drive the right action at the right place, the right skills, and the right tools. Critically important to do the due diligence. It didn't sound like fun, sound like a lot of freedom meetings, A little bit of like brain damage, right? But what the result is a national working model that's, I would bet in the next 20 years is gonna be fully implemented. That's, and then they're gonna see results when they have fire starts in bad years. They're gonna see results. I firmly believe that. You gotta believe, right? You have to believe that we're doing the right thing because the scale of the problems is a challenge. And answering these key questions. Where do you want to start? Who are the implementers? Who are going to be implementing? None of this is going to happen with a really put together process that everyone complies with. What's going to happen is when champions in this community stand up, step into the breach, hold on for your life until you get an executive director hired, or maybe you get an additional capacity in the state forest service, or maybe the U.S. Forest Service miraculously hires 800 people as they're trying to do. I don't think that's necessarily the best bet for you right now. Who are the champions in this community that will step in, hold on for dear life, and bet on the future, and bet on hope as opposed to fear? Because that's the thing I want to close with, is that champions and hope are the secrets to human endeavor. Fear is a marvelous motivator to a point, but then you got to work towards the opposite of fear, which is courage, confidence, shared sacrifice. These are the things that are ultimately going to sustain you in the long run. In my career, have been the things that have demonstrated, or that have allowed a community to go from talk to action and sustain that action to the type of outcomes and results that are critically important in this unique moment in Colorado's forests and in Colorado's community. So, well done. I mean, that was a heck of a lot of information you jammed into your own heads in a very short amount of time, and I really appreciate it, part of it. So I just, the last thought I would add, I'd offer, and I'll take any questions on opportunities or funding or whatever else you want to talk about, or we can do this over beers, is that you are the right people. Now is the right time. This is the right place. So I encourage you to stay at it. And we'll be here as the State Forest Service, and certainly as a representative of the state of Colorado, there's a variety of resources out there. We're lightning focused. I spent a lot of time with the state's leaders and a lot of the national leaders on these issues. And people are transfixed by the moment that we're in. And we're ready, and we're willing, we're hoping we can knock it right the hell out of the park here in Colorado, be a national leader in the Intermountain West, be a national leader in the country on how we move to fire adapted communities and transition to a place where we can, as a people, thrive, not only live, but thrive with wildland fire. So thank you, and I'll take any questions. Sniper comments, bad jokes, anything.
We got
Matt, thanks for that great summary. I think that was a wonderful deal. Get back where we started earlier. Somebody's going to win Todd's $5 because we certainly heard a lot of alphabet soup today. And I'm speaking today from my perspective as a landowner, a full-time resident here at Steamboat, who kind of took it upon himself after I had an epiphany when my wife lost her family home in Paradise, California, and I lost my family's cabin in Huntington Lake area in the Sierra National Forest over the last few years. And then I'm living in this beautiful spot with a national forest as a neighbor and a lot of these temporary residents, second, third, fourth home owners out here in South Routt, Pleasant Valley. I realized that we had a problem and we needed to do something about it. And one thing I've always kind of guided my life is that, you stay away from government and the medical system and lawyers if you could. And the higher the government official, the least responsive they would be. So I sort of figured I didn't want to deal with that, but coming up against, neighbor of national forest and that kind of, going to have to deal with that. They wouldn't let us trim the trees in the Sierra National Forest. They wouldn't let us touch any of the wood. I think the Sierra Club is probably the biggest enemy of the forests of America that's ever been, but that's another story. So what I did to solve my problem was delegated it out to somebody else, which is the way I normally try to do this. So I enlisted the help of my local neighborhood land trust, where I had some influence, and they took the ball. They searched for funding to get done what we needed to do. They involved the local fire districts. They introduced me to Carolina and the Colorado State Forest Service, and they were incredibly responsive. They had all the resources, they had all the maps, they had all the data, and they kind of described what we needed to do. And then we got Brady, our fire chief from Oak Creek, came out, spent a lot of time on my property, my neighbor's property, the land trust property, to look at what we needed to do. And lo and behold, at another epiphany, I decided, I discovered that, well, maybe some of these government entities aren't here to help. And funding sources were identified by Sally really quickly, and Carolina put together plans. And so we've got our own little thing going out in Pleasant Valley that, mirrors some of the other things that are being done around. And that's wonderful. I think the point I'm trying to make is that landowners are not going to get involved in this sort of thing until some leadership advises them that they have help, and that the government is not there to be, alphabet soup is not there to confuse them or stand in their way. They're there to help. So I would only urge you alphabet soup types to try to work together, try to have somebody who is in charge, who can be the point person. And we found it for our local area, and I think that that's going to work out. And we've been able, by knocking on doors, and fortunately, fire is on everybody's burner part of the bun these days. And just knocking on doors in the neighborhood, people say, yeah, whatever we need to do, we'll write checks, we'll let you come on our property, we'll do anything you want to do. What they don't want to do is fill out forms that says, I'm a farmer as well, so I have filled out forms for government programs. But, they want means testing, before you can get any government money to come on your property or work on anything. And they say, well, we'd rather just write a check than file all these papers. And just keep those kind of things in mind when you're dealing with the public. That they want results. They're willing to pay for results, and they need to pay for results. I was kind of patting myself on the back. I've spent tens of thousands of dollars just on my property for mitigation work. Some guys are here in the room that have done that for me, and we're doing some other demonstration projects in our area. And I kind of threw my elbow out of the joint by patting myself on the back, and I was talking to my Chubb insurance company for my property renewal, and they were just saying, well, that's nice, that's nice. I cleared this 10 acres, I cleared this 5 acres, I did this, I did that thin, I made paths for the animals to, to get the elk to migrate through the property and all that sort of thing. And they said, oh, that's really lovely, that's really lovely. And I said, but we really don't care about that fencible space around houses. And I kind of, what? That's not what I've been hearing in a couple of years of these meetings and that sort of thing. They said, we're more interested in what's going on 5 miles away from you. 5 miles away from you, where all the deadfall is, the beetle kill, this and that, on your neighbors, on other open lands, and on public lands. And, so that makes this a much bigger issue than anything for just landowners or individuals. And I think people need to understand that. And I don't know how we can get that word out, that, it's bigger than any one landowner can possibly handle the issues, especially if they have a home. Anyway, I think I'll just leave it at that we're on the right track. We just have to have the leadership. I believe the motivation is there, and I know the skill is there within this room to take care of the problems that we have. And it's good to see that the will is there as well. So anything you can do to cut the red tape would be wonderful.
I appreciate that. I just say this building community through wildfire resilience. That's a great model. That these are decadal engagements. This is not like 60 months from now. cranking it out with piles and piles of money until the problem is solved. Forestry is a multi, it's an intergenerational engagement. The idea that we tend forests to a variety of benefits is a multi-generational endeavor. And so you have to own it from generation to generation and try to figure out, but our responsibility, right, is sort of like the Athenian model, like leave things better than you found them, like full stop. If you can leave things better than you found them, create a trajectory, you have to have trust in the future generations that they're going to pick up the mantle and continue to advance towards community-based and statewide and national goals. The cool thing is the United States of America, certainly in Colorado, we have a proud legacy of conservation that spans multiple generations and has shown to be extremely successful when we're committed and have the appropriate investments, and each level of our sort of governance plays its specific and unique role that one can play, from the parcel owner all the way to the president. And I think that we are in a space because of tragedy, which unfortunately is how human change typically is endeavored, that we're moving in the right direction again. And it's not the first time we've done as a society this type of restoration of our forests and natural resources. When the miners and the railroad and a variety of other things came to Colorado, these forests were a lot bigger because they were all gone for the most part. And through forestry practice, the art and science of forestry, as well as a variety of other endeavors, that there's a lot of intact, relatively natural forests available to us. But now we're living with the legacy of not loggers, or railroads and miners coming through denuding the forest. We're living with 100 years of suppression and the impacts of that. And so we have the same tool available to us. I talk often about a renaissance in forestry in Colorado. This idea that we have an incredible opportunity to build on the history in this state and in this country of using ecosystem-driven forestry, which my friends at CFRI and other, we're trying to define what that means, so we can demonstrate that when we talk about forestry in this state, we're not talking about the pillaging of natural resources for private gain, but they were using what is a very elegant and elemental force, human ingenuity, science, and the proud practice of foresters. You tell them the state forestry to move our way out of this, but it's not the only tool to apply us. And we know that we're going to have to use a variety of mechanisms to get there, but everybody has to do their part. And government has a huge role to play because this is a collective problem that will require a collective solution. Other questions? Let's run out of time.